Good morning, everyone. You're very, very welcome. It's great to see so many people in the room. My name is Noel Davidson, and I'm your host today for what is a very fast-paced breakfast session. We're going to be joined by Conor Kelly of the NTMA, Darius Souza of Kianda Technologies, Carol McNulty of ATA Precision Engineering, and Philip Adams of Mercury. And the whole reason we're here together is we wanted to tackle and discuss some of the big issues that are facing organizations and highlight opportunities that are coming down the track. And as a result, we have a hashtag future focus. So hashtag future focus is, if you're on social media, please use that today. We have a couple of other things that we're going to introduce, how you'll be able to use that hashtag. And there might be a little bit of a reward with a little small competition later on. But welcome to Zoom. You're all very used to Zoom at this stage. We've chosen strategically not to go webinar style. So we're using a Zoom meeting. So you have the ability later on to unmute yourself and ask a question live. Imagine we're in a live auditorium, whether it be a hotel room or a conference room, and we'd be passing down the mic to you in those days, which is what, 18 months ago, but the world has changed since then. And we're using digital technologies just like Zoom more and more. So to do that, underneath your menu bar, there's the reactions bar. And if you click on that little reactions button, there's the ability to raise your hand. And that little yellow hand will digitally go up beside you, and we can unmute you and take your question. So please feel free, get involved, and be a sponge this morning, and to ask as many questions as you can and get involved. So I'm going to bring in Darius Souza this morning. And Darius, I'm going to bring you in on screen. How are you, Darius? Good morning. It's been a long time actually since we've seen one another. As owner and founder of Kianda Technologies, the last time we met was the National Enterprise Awards, where you won the Export Award. So congratulations. We haven't spoken since then. I'll get you to unmute yourself there, Darius. There you go.
Thank you. Yes, true. That was the last time. And it was such a great recognition for us, the award. We were really delighted with it, Noel. And I'm really excited to be here this morning. This is the biggest event we have organized so far. And I'm hoping that this will be the first of many more future focus events to come in the coming years. I'm really excited, and thank you so much for everyone joining us and to our amazing speakers.
It's great. And thank you for hosting it this morning, Darius, because the world has really changed around us in the last 14, 15 months. When we go back to March of last year, digital was all we ended up with. We're all moved online. We were working remotely. And as a result, we've had challenges. And I think that's one of the big things that we were hoping to discuss today is how to focus and maybe get a crystal ball and kind of guess what's going to come down the track and how we can best position ourselves. So you're going to come back and have a chat to us later on. Absolutely. And we'll have a little bit of discussion. So thank you for that. And a quick one, if I can, future focus. So if you are using social media, please, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, use the hashtag future focus. We'll be able to see your comments there. But you're in a room here, so use the comments down below. In the chat room, you can ask any questions you want there. We'll see them and we'll put them to our panelists. But we're going to use the tools that we have to our best of abilities. To kick things off, let's launch a little bit of a poll. So to everyone in the room, did innovations that you had put in place before COVID prepare you for the challenges over the past 14 months? So a quick straw poll. We have just under 100 people live in the room at the moment. Did innovations that you put in place before COVID prepare you for the challenges over the last 14 months? We'll give this about 30, 40 seconds for you to do that. It's popped up on your screen. You can choose yes or no. And we have a couple of these polls taking place throughout the day, and they'll form the basis of our conversations. So we have over 55% have answered it already, which is great. I'm going to give that another couple of seconds, and we'll wait till we get roughly around 70% or higher, and then we'll end the poll and throw it up on the screen. And there we are. We're just heading for the 70%. So let's end that poll and we'll throw that up on the screen. It's great to see that it's a 60-40 split. So 60% of the people in the room put some innovations in place before COVID that helped us prepare for the challenges over the last 14 months. I think that is phenomenal to see, because I think if we were to make a guess, you probably would have thought maybe it would have gone the other way. And that leads us as a lovely little segue into our very first guest speaker today. So I'm going to bring in Philip Adams. Philip, good morning and thank you for joining us. So Philip, head of IT in Mercury. You might actually expand on that and tell me what your role is and how the challenges have faced yourself in Mercury over the last 14 months.
Yeah, sure. Good morning, Noel. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, my name's Philip. I'm the head of IT for Mercury. For those of you who don't know who Mercury are, we're an Irish-founded, an Irish-based construction company. We operate throughout Europe, building very large, complex engineering projects for a range of different sectors, including data centers, healthcare, life sciences, to name a few. And essentially, you know, in relation to that query and around that poll comment, Mercury, obviously, by the nature of the business that we do, we have a remote workforce already in place. So therefore, we were used to providing innovations and technology solutions to that workforce in remote locations, despite the fact that when the pandemic hit, everyone had to be remote. So essentially, we were lucky in one respect that we had the structures and the technology and innovations already in place. And really all we had to do was really increase the resilience and the redundancy around that and ramp it up to make sure that people within our workforce who haven't traditionally worked remotely could do so, but could do so with a good user experience and as seamlessly as possible. And one respect, it really helped us accelerate many of the initiatives and innovations that we had on our roadmap or were in the early stages of adoption. And I would say over the last 12 months, we've probably found it easier to get technology adopted. And if anything, it has encouraged more ideas generation within our business.
And Philip, what kind of projects have Mercury been working on to better understand that kind of area that you're working in?
In terms of the projects that we do as a business, as I said, we are in the construction industry, but it's engineering services, everything from a subcontractor to a main builder. And many of our clients are the major household names, and a lot of them are large tech companies as well. So it's not uncanny that we should bring those innovations and technology into our business. And you know, we're engineering, but we still have, like any other business, the standard procurement and finance and human resource functions. And what we look to do is build on that platform with newer technologies, whereby traditionally we had an element of our workforce who wouldn't have needed to touch technology in any shape or format because they're on a construction site, putting in heavy material and equipment and installations into facilities. But we have really focused over the last number of years, bringing those digital technologies down to lower levels within our workforce, to people who traditionally wouldn't have needed that technology. And it needs to be on device, it needs to be very accessible, but it needs to be appropriate and relevant and add value as well. So we're there on not just looking to solve challenges and problems and drive efficiency and improvements in our business, but actually look to where we can be more competitive and bring efficiencies and increase the success of our workforce to be able to do their job, which ultimately leads to a better outcome for our clients as well.
And you know, hindsight is a great thing, Philip. And I think every company in the session today will look back at things that they learned and things that they had to adapt. And I suppose I'll put that question to you. So what have you learned from the last year and your colleagues in Mercury, and how did you adapt?
Well, I suppose what we had the structures in place, but there was an element of the ideas generation tended to come from particular parts of our business. And what we've learned by, if anything, the fact that everyone was remote, people asked for more. Once they got used to working in that remote environment, and they actually started building on that culture of ideas generation for innovations. but they wanted them faster and they wanted them to work seamlessly as well. And they weren't just looking for solutions and bringing problems to us, they were actually identifying solutions themselves. We always encourage people within our business to almost look within our own toolbox, first of all, rather than look to something brand new. And they were looking to see if they could improve and adopt on the existing technologies already had in place, how they could be integrated with other solutions that we had, and as well as that, just bring in something new when we didn't have the answer there. So if anything, the floodgates almost opened up in one respect, where people were now bringing not just challenges, but solutions to group IT departments or other people within the business, and rather than others and advocates having to encourage and drive that adoption, they were actually just coming our direction. And the good thing was everyone was willing to get engaged and get involved in the process, which helped just drive it forward and ensure then when things went live, they were very successful and we extracted value from it very, very quickly.
And that knowledge and sharing it. There's the knowledge vault. I think we spoke about a week or two ago, the innovation hub. So there are employees across the globe sharing their innovations and idea in one place. So would you like expand on that data, that experience, and that sharing? We can all learn from that, and you've embraced that in Mercury, haven't you?
Absolutely. Like at the end of the knowledge vault that we created, it's nothing new. People and many organizations have mechanisms and solutions to share knowledge and capture ideas within their organization for years. But what we wanted to do is make it very, very seamless, almost build it organically. So the concept of the knowledge vault was to, put first of all the capability of capturing ideas and the knowledge and the skills and the best practices that people have learned over time. Wanted to be able to allow them to capture very easy. So literally on a mobile device or any device that they had, and be able to just take that photograph, write a small note about what they experienced, how they felt that knowledge and skill set could be shared, allowed to be categorized so that therefore that the wider audience can delve into the knowledge vault and find those nuggets of gold essentially that are relevant to them. And rather than having to keep constantly promoting these solutions and the ideas and encourage people to use it, we just wanted to create a culture and an organic generation of that data capture, essentially knowledge capture right throughout our organization. Now, obviously we had to put structures in place to allow people to vet the ideas and the solutions and the knowledge that was captured, to make sure that it was best practice and to make sure that actually, it defined the full value of an opportunity and so forth. And that was important. But ultimately, we wanted to allow it as flexible and as easy as possible to use, to encourage people to do it and just dip into it and actually extract value from it as well.
Yeah, and Philip, a quick reminder to our audience. So if you want to ask a question at any stage, you can use the chat box, or if you want to raise your hand, we'll unmute you and you can ask any one of our guests this morning. And we're going to have a panel discussion later on, so you can get involved. Philip, you saw me do a quick poll there. Were you surprised with the result that it was 60% said that innovations they put in place before COVID help them with the challenges? I would have thought maybe it was the other way around and it caught it by surprise, but that's very encouraging, isn't it?
Absolutely. Like ultimately, the Irish marketplace is small, but technology has been evolving rapidly over the last number of years, and it's to a certain extent, the capability to access information on a given device at any point in time, provided you have connectivity and even offline and online capability. It's always been there. So I'm not surprised that the structures were there, and probably the challenges were more that it just, people had to adopt to a wider expansion within their workforce, going remote and working, in home locations or different locations. And I suppose ultimately some of the challenges that within Mercury that we faced was more the fact that people couldn't travel because our construction sites are throughout Europe. It wasn't the case that they couldn't do their job in a remote location. It's just that sometimes it was just easier to do it in the given location where they needed to be, and those travel restrictions were the challenges. But that's where technology just stepped into its own, and that's why we've looked at even innovations to allow people to be able to do the job even if they're not on site, using virtual reality and augmented reality solutions But yeah, it is very encouraging to see that for the majority, they already had the systems and the structures in place, and probably just a matter of ramping them up and expanding their use.
Yeah, and Philip, I was nearly going to have a little side bet with some of our guests today to see would the first question today mention security controls, because it's on everyone's lips at the moment when we're talking about cybersecurity. And David McNamara, thank you, David, has said were appropriate security controls put in place for the people who are in the 60%. So I think that might be a general question for everyone to think about. But from your point of view, how do you manage security in Mercury? Because there's a lot of data, there's a lot of experience, it's all being shared. What controls have you guys got in place?
Well, first of all, security is probably at the top of our agenda. It has been for a significant amount of time. When we're actually engaging with many of our clients in a pre-qual situation, it's the first thing they're asking. Our clients are very security conscious given the nature of the work that they do. So it's important that we, as a contractor to their contracting services to their organizations, that we hold ourselves to those same standards. And it is often, I find, yes, and hope, I assume many people in the audience would agree, it is a catch-22. You do have that trade-off very often with ease of use, flexibility, easy access with the security question. But we really drive awareness with an organization to encourage people to always be security aware themselves, but understand that when IT or any individual in the organization has that security challenge to meet, which might mean you have to pull back on a particular requirement or user experience, that people understand why you have to do it. And the nature of these systems, they tend to be integrated to make them effective. That also brings its extra security challenge into it. And we work with a lot of partners within the industry to ensure that the solutions and applications that we deploy, the infrastructure that it runs on, is as secure as it can be. It's a sort of thing that we will always have to devote energy to, because the bad actors and criminals out there will most likely always be one step ahead of us. And we can't be complacent as we evolve and develop and use these applications and bring more solutions in over time.
I heard a great comment yesterday where somebody said there has to be a balance, because if companies put in too many security controls, the staff then get frustrated and they start then to leave the system and use their own apps because it works a little bit easier for them. And then, of course, if the control is too light, well, then you're open to exploit. And Daniel Ferrier has asked there in the chat, can you tell us more about the IT tools that you provide to your teams on the ground and how they've changed as a result of COVID?
Yeah, like many of those tools, obviously it depends on the work the individuals do. We've quite a disparate workforce in the sense that even on a construction site, there'll be office-based workers carrying out the regular admin tasks because of the sheer volume of people on the construction site. And then you have engineers, you have trades, labor, and so forth. So the tools vary, but the typical ones would be large engineering and design and modeling packages. And a lot of that now it's all to do with the BIM, building information modeling, which is 3, 4, and 5D dimensional data. And it's all connected. And very often when you're in large sites, you have different contractors all collaborating on a central model. They can all be in disparate remote locations as well. And then it's bringing that capability onto the construction site. Gone are the days when you walk around with roads of paper under your arms with the engineering drawings. That's all gone online now. It's all on devices and iPads. And as I alluded to earlier, many of the construction companies are now using augmented reality, whereby they've got hard hats with the capability, and they're visualizing the construction drawings and what they're about to build in a 3D model through visors on their helmets before the thing's even built. So, those are the classical construction capabilities, but then we're just a business like anybody else. We still have to procure material, manage staff, and so forth. And the likes of the applications we've developed with Kianda is basically getting the right information to the right people as they need to consume it, and of course making that secure. And when that information changes, that you manage that integrity of that information and data over time, and that it's all backed up and ready to be available to use as required. And a big concept within our business is now that, you know, this digital twin, whereby we can capture every aspect of a construction job from the minute the sod is turned in the ground through to a final building, and replicate that in a digital world for the client if they wanted to replicate that building in another location. So you learn from the quality challenges you had, and develop that and drive the efficiency through the process into the future.
It's a great phrase, digital twin. I've heard that used once before, but you know, one of the new phrases that I hadn't heard was no code, and I had to look it up a couple of months ago, and we'll be talking to Daria and Kianda later on about it. But define no code from your perspective and how it has helped Mercury.
Yeah, like, you know, Mercury's a construction company. We're engineering services. We're not software developers, and our plan is not to become software developers. And the decision is constantly evolving. But you know, we made the decision. Well, we're not going to develop a huge development operations team within the organization, waiting to develop software as and when the business feels they need it, or we identify an opportunity. So we're very much, and also, you know, that these challenges come at our business and within to almost a group IT store at a phenomenal rate of knots, and you have to develop the solution fairly quickly, because construction projects, by their very nature, you know, they have a life cycle. Some of them are quite short, you know, in a matter of months. Some of them run over multiple years, but they do start and they do finish, and they each have unique challenges. So we don't often have the time to go off and develop some solution, because by the time you'd have done that and got it deployed, you know, you're halfway through the construction job and you've missed the opportunity. So the concept of low code or no code for us is having that ability just to spin up a solution very, very quickly and get it to the people who need it as quick as they can and get value from it literally the next day. So having that ability to, as I say, look within the applications we currently have, either develop on top of those or develop something new in a very fast, short period of time without huge technical software development skills, and it is a huge advantage to us. The Knowledge Vault is an example of that. You know, we had a concept, we worked with Kianda and the team, but there's an element we can do ourselves, and then help bring the capability back within our own organization to improve it or develop it even and tweak it over time. So that concept of low code, no code allows us to do it without having deep technical software development skills within the organization.
Yeah, and Philip, you had probably the toughest job this morning was going first, and you've broken the seal anyway, because the questions are coming thick and fast. And I'll segue one of the questions there from Alexander Mall with a future focused theme. So Alexander has said there, can you say something about how you work together with the supply chain to ensure everyone on site works from the same information and platforms, also subcontractors, clients, and third parties? So I'm going to segue that and ask, what are the things that you're most looking forward to with a future focus, and maybe answering Alexander's question at the same time?
Yeah, like, you know, the supply chain is just another cog in the wheel, really, for the whole construction cycle. And you know, we're doing a lot of work now. We're looking to employ products that will help develop that supply chain network seamlessly on one platform. There are plenty of solutions out there in the market for a significant period of time, but it's how you engage your supply chain to use that. And back to that building information model again. These are all concepts and different applications, but we're looking to really try and develop how we join information from core engineering models through to, you know, the procurement function within our own function, and ultimately down to the supply chain, so that, you know, everyone's on the same page essentially when they're procuring, supplying material for the construction site. And it just improves efficiency. It's always been possible. It just, you know, would have been somewhat disjointed in different systems. And we're looking to work with other partners in the industry to see if we can develop that. And it's very similar. You know, there's a whole concept now around sustainability that's become very important within our industry, and that carbon footprint that is minimize as much as possible within the industry. So there's a massive piece of work we're working with our clients and our partners and our supply chain around that. And that again kicks back up into some of the work we've done around the Knowledge Vault and so forth, whereby, you know, it's all knowledge sharing, knowledge captured, ideas generation. We have a digital edge committee within our organization, just literally capture these concepts and ideas, which all focus not just so much on improvement and problem solving, but opportunity and looking to the future. Now, the challenge is you get a lot of ideas and you really do have to funnel them down. And we have a good mechanism to try and do that, whereby, you know, we just identify the most appropriate ones, but also the most value add ones for either for our business, for our clients, or the supply chain, and develop those much faster, obviously, than the rest, because we all don't have infinite time and resources. So we do have to be be important about how we select and pick those opportunities.
And we wanted to structure that today because this is a fast-paced session. So there's questions coming in, Philip, for you. And I'm going to invite you for our own little knowledge base here. You might answer some of the questions in the chat, or bear in mind, we are going to have a panel discussion later on. So David Hannon has put a lovely question there. David, I'm going to hold that question to later on when we have Philip coming back later to the panel discussion. But Philip, if you want to answer any of those questions, you're very welcome to. Thank you very much indeed. And we will see you later on.
Okay, thanks, Noel.
I'm going to run and ask, before we introduce our next panel speaker, I'm going to run another poll just to as a bit of an introduction into our next speaker. So to everyone in the room, what is your opinion about the pandemic's effects on workforce or daily business process management? Was it disruptive? Did it push your industry to digitize quickly? Did it have no effect whatsoever? Or just not sure? I haven't had a time to think about that. So 118 people taking the poll at the moment. What is your opinion about the pandemic's effects on the workforce or daily business process management? So while you're filling that out, I'm going to bring in my next guest. And our next guest today is Carol McEntee. Carol, good morning, and you're very, very welcome. Carol from ATA and Digital and IT Director. So you better explain what ATA does and your role there.
Morning, Noel. Thanks for having me. Morning, everybody. So yeah, ATA, we're an Irish-based manufacturer of precision engineering tools and cutting tools. It's a great Irish success story. We're headquartered in Cavan, but we have operations in the US, in the UK, and in Germany as well. So, and I'm responsible for digital and IT. So even recently, that digital came into the title because of what's been happening with COVID and how important the digital side of the business it is. So it's not just IT keeping the lights on, keeping things up and running. It's the innovation side. It's e-commerce. It's all that side of the business that COVID certainly has accelerated in the last 18 months.
And, you know, we've all developed what we call an innovation mindset because we were really forced into it. And we just did the quick poll there. And it's no surprise that 73%, over 60 people have said that they were pushed within their industry to digitize quickly as a result of the pandemic's effects. So I'm sure this was the same for you guys in ATA. So that innovation mindset, you know, have you always had that push to change, to be looking at new ways of doing things? And how do you keep that charged up within yourselves?
Yeah, well, I suppose we at the heart of it, we started off as a manufacturing company. So you basically have a building full of engineers who constantly are tweaking, and you know, R&D is there the whole time. How do we make this better, faster, more efficient? So we have that kind of you know, manufacturing mindset as well. But a couple of years ago, we attended, there was an Enterprise Ireland Innovation for Growth program in conjunction with the IMI and MIT, which again was kind of really brought innovation to the forefront for the company to say, you know, it's not some guy in a room just thinking of something, go, oh, this is a great idea, and there you go. It really is a process, and Philip touched on it before. It's about ideation. It's getting all those ideas somewhere, getting someone to look at them and making, you know, what makes sense actually to put time and effort to get across the line. So
this is the Enterprise Ireland I4G Innovation Programme, is it?
Correct, that's it, yes.
And so looking back then, with that as a background, what things are you most proud of that you put in place as COVID-19 hit?
Well, there's probably two things that we which were timely. we had attended that I4G course. So, and this is one of the touch points with Kianda. We actually use the Kianda app to put a process around our innovation process ourselves. We'd like to think of ourselves as innovating how we did the innovation. But one, as we said, as I said earlier, it's not just some guy on his own, you know, thinking of a great idea and deploying it. It's a team effort and getting all these ideas. So, you know, it's like the old-fashioned suggestion box, but fully digitized. And there's stage gates to ideas. There's ideations. You know, you need to look at the process metrics about ideas coming through, because not all will go through. As Philip said, you can't put them all through. We don't have finite time. But it's really important to capture it from everybody in the business. So not just management, or not just manufacturing looking at this, or IT looking at this. Is somebody can put in an idea and we all review it and get it in. And just being able to have that in place meant that when everyone was off site, we could still put in ideas, we could still track it, we could still see what's going on. So you didn't have the water cooler talks, or, you know, that's something that we missed, but we can still put that in. I think the other thing we were lucky with, but good timing, was we had put in new infrastructure around our security and access off-site to get on-site, and we literally had business continuity testing on the January of last year, just before we went into lockdown. So we effectively took people off-site to see could they do their day jobs off-site. And, you know, some people are saying, like, what's the point of doing this? You know, this is a big disruption to my day. But it was good timing, because come February, March, April, everyone had to do that. So we were well set up for that. Only for contending with dodgy Wi-Fi in people's homes was something that we couldn't control too much. But other than that, it went quite seamlessly.
Carol, with foresight like that, I think most people in the room be looking for 6 numbers for the lotto this weekend, because that was a little bit of luck now, wasn't it? That you planned that prior to COVID, though.
Yeah, so that would have been just part of our general IT plan, and it was something that we'd actually put on the long finger, and just eventually got around and said, look, we better do it, and we did it in the US and Ireland and UK and Germany. So just to put a stress test on the system to make sure that if we did have a large cohort of people off site, that we would be able to handle it. So yeah, excellent foresight. But I haven't won anything in the lotto since, so
no,
I'm not sure it's a repeatable process.
Well, I think everyone in the room is thinking, well, there's some little bit of luck going there from ATA. It might rub off on something else. I mentioned the word no code and that phrase earlier on, and the ability to use that technology. How have you guys used no code technology to deliver those objectives in ATA?
So one of the main advantages for low code or no code for us is, I find it a lot more. So there's kind of 3 options. One, you can buy something that someone's already made, which is probably nearly what you want, but won't be exactly what you want. So it'll be like 80% of your requirements, and you get it up and running, and that's it. And then you can get your big development team on site to do exactly what you want, which is a costly proposition. And as Philip said, you'd want to have a lot of, you know, applications coming through to justify it. So what I like about the no code is, one, it's no code, so you don't need to be a developer. It helps to have somebody technical, somebody logically minded, understands workflows, and works well with the best of with the rest of the business. So a good business analyst is a perfect person for this, and we've had a couple of strong people on our site doing that. But what I like about it is it's agile, so it's genuinely agile. So it's somebody wants something, here's version 1. Actually, I want this. Actually, I don't want that. Could we do this? Could we do that? So if you did that with a big software company, who do a traditional waterfall, they deliver something after 3 months. You go like, that actually we've changed our minds since, or there's new requirements and everything has changed. So I was looking at one of the apps that we have developed in Kianda. It's on version 80 at the moment. So that's true iteration of agile. So we can just add on bits and pieces, correct it, change workflows. So to me, that's what's really nice. It's not a big project. It's a nice little iterative project that goes in the background, and it really goes with kind of the innovation approach. Like, people might ask for an app and then they never use it, but we haven't spent much time on it. We spent a couple of days on it. That's fine. It withers on the vine, but then something else will take off. So it really helps that kind of it just quickly get the product to market, start using it, and then people really know what they want. So
yeah, and that low cost tool of innovating. So when you think of innovation, I mean, we often look at Elon Musk and SpaceX, and they're launching Starship, and it's big and it's bold and it's expensive, and some of them launch, some of them don't launch.
yeah.
When they land, they crash. But you've had 80 reiterations of a small little app, but that just works away in the background. So can you talk about that process of embedding that innovation into the organization? How do you get people started and involved? And do you take suggestions from everyone within the organization? And how do
Absolutely.
you, as a leader of a team, how do you bring those in and get people on board?
So again, it's about communication. Everybody understanding what the outcomes are that you want for your company. So that really starts at the top, having very clear leadership around, and I'm talking like CFO, CEO level of, growth is important, digitization is important, strategy is important, innovation is important. And, it's not something that's done on the side, it's something that's part of what we do. And that innovation process we branded it All Innovation Matters. So it's AIM, AIM, All Innovation Matters. And that's where people had put in their ideas, no matter what it was. And it might be something like, a brand new product with, this fantastic technology, or someone might say, look at, I'd like to have a second monitor on my desk because I'd be more productive. So it's like every area of the business, big or small, those ideas come in. And one of the tricks is, and we were taught this in the I4G program, is you need to kill ideas as well. So you will get overwhelmed if you've got a pipeline of 300 ideas and like nothing gets across the line. So you really have to, get that idea and put it in the filing cabinet and say, we'll come back to that at the moment. These are the ones that are aligned to our strategy. These are the ones that we think will benefit us and our customers at this point. And it's providing visibility of that as well. So that's something we probably can improve on at the moment. We're relaunching this program. We're relaunching the app now in German as well for our German employees, because they haven't seen it yet. So and it's a good way of uniting the various businesses as well.
And I suppose to bring the theme of hashtag future focus for anyone that's on social media, and I can see it's flying here at the moment. What opportunities do you see for the future? So I suppose, what are the things that you're most looking forward to?
I think there's a good speaker again. We had an I4G called Barry O'Reilly, and he was saying, COVID is it's not a disruptor, it's an accelerant. And I think everyone has spoken to that. Literally, I think I was chatting to you before, Noel, when I see my mother organizing teams meetings for her class, and my kids are up and on apps doing school, it's just in everybody's lingo now in everybody's life. And I think a lot of our users now are more self-sufficient. It's people go and find the training online. People kind of figure out what they need to do at home to troubleshoot as well. So I think it's got an awful lot of people across that digital fear of like, oh, I don't know what to do here, and a little bit more confidence around digital tools and see the option of what they want. So to me, that mindset is great coming into now when we're all back in the office, and we've got that momentum behind us.
And yeah, I think you've really summed up nearly that theme of no code, where
Yeah.
we don't need to be techie to be using Zoom. And if we don't know how to use it, we have the University of YouTube to look up, and there's your knowledge base.
YouTube is your friend, and the people just aren't afraid to click on the buttons and go forward. And as you said, it's taking the IT. Like, we never want to be a bottleneck in IT. Like, we're not the old-fashioned IT and say, like, we tell you what you must have to do. We'll make sure it's secure, it makes sense, that it'll integrate with all the various different systems. But we're all on for people looking at other tools that to introduce to the business, and we get them up and running. So we don't own all those applications. The business owns the applications. We just help keep them running.
Carl, that is fantastic. And like Philip before you, I'm going to see you later on for the panel discussion, and we'll be taking a few more questions and posting to it. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, Noel.
So I'm going to throw up one more poll just before I bring in Daria. They're great little conversation starters. So talking about adapting, how likely are you looking to adapt or buy new solutions to help you with digital transformation? So we mentioned some of the solutions that are out there. Both Philip and Carl were talking about some solutions, no-code solutions available off the shelf that they can adapt and innovate within their organization. And then right down to the domestic level where we're using Teams and we're using Zoom and we're using digital tools because we've had to. So how likely are you and looking to adapt or buy new solutions to help you with your digital transformation? Very likely, yet to explore, unlikely, or unsure. And while you're filling that out, I'm going to bring in Daria. So welcome back, Daria. And you must be very excited by some of the answers we're seeing, because this is your space, isn't it? The technology space. So I'm going to wait till it just gets up to around 70%. You can unmute yourself there, Daria, and I'll put a couple of questions that are coming into you here in a second. So we're just nearly at 70%. So I'll pause the poll and I'll throw it up on the screen. A massive 62% are much more likely now to be looking to adapt and buy new solutions to help with digital transformation. And I think that's very encouraging, because maybe this time last year, that would not have been the case. We were in a new world that is changing around us. So how is Kianda? Tell us a little bit about Kianda, actually, and what you do and how you've adapted yourself over the last 14 months. I'll get you to mute yourself there, Daria. There you go.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I was trying to speak. So what we do, Noel, is we provide a no-code application development business process automation platform. Essentially, what we do, accelerate digitalization for businesses. And in the last while, what we have seen, of course, when COVID started, we have seen a bit of a freeze in the market. People were not making decisions, and there was a bit of fear. And following that, we've seen that people needed more digital solutions, digital systems to be able to do their daily tasks. So we can't now walk down the corridor and talk to a colleague about an issue or a report that we need. We have to go perhaps use emails or online meetings. So digital solutions, digital systems become not nice to have, but a must have. So we can reduce this type of interactions and bring more productivity and allow people to solve the business challenges that they needed.
So I was really fascinated and puzzled by that whole notion of no code. And with your permission, I'm just going to throw up your website, because what I did was I clicked on the request demo and had a quick look, and I got a really nice customized demo by one of your team. It was brilliant, and it gave me a really good understanding of how it could work for my business. So I better introduce this, because we've been talking about the future focus hashtag. There's a little competition running, Daria, isn't it? So we're going to choose somebody who's been posting on social media with future focus, and they're going to get a free demo.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So when we talk about digitization, what does no code and digitization look like in an organization, and how do we see it in action?
I think Philip and Carl really explained it so well in their terms on how they use and what value it brings to their business. But for me to speak perhaps a little bit more deep into what it is, what kind of approach it is. So in a nutshell, no code provides a toolkit approach for building software, for building business software. Rather than using programming languages such as Java, C#, people without programming skills can create business logic, interfaces they need without coding. We usually don't like to accept it easily, but business software comes with shelf life, typically 4 or 5 years, and they need to be maintained, they need to be upgraded. Building these systems over months and years, in most cases with traditional development techniques, may not make sense. So this is where no code comes in. And no code is not about technology. It's about people. It's about empowering people to create the technology they need. In fact, currently 0.5% of world population is capable of programming. I think this shows the gap that exists, and no code or low code solutions are a problem solver for this lack of technical resources. And it kind of helps to a greater range of people from different backgrounds to be directly involved in digitalization. When we started, our main goal was, and we promote no-code technologies. Why do we do that? Our main goal is, our main objective is to create a more inclusive future where a greater number of people from different backgrounds, different roles, with or without programming skills, can be a part of digitalization and can actively participate in digitalization.
And I was reaching for an example, a simple example. I was telling my wife about the session this morning, and we were talking about no code, and she said, "What's no code?" And the example I used was web design, where it's all moved to paint by numbers now, where there's very little coding involved. Wix, Weebly, Squarespace, you have a little toolbar, you drag it across, and you're creating your page. That's really a really good example, isn't it? You've been doing that for some clients where they're removing paper and digitizing. Any examples that you can give?
So the common examples we see being our solution being used are examples are hiring, onboarding new employees, improving budgets, improving supplier setup forms, all of these processes that you might be using back and forth emails, paper forms or Excel sheets with the help of digitalization, which what I mean when I say digitalization to me is more connecting people, technology, and processes. So this is the core of it. This people is still at the core of it. And what we are trying to do to replace these manual tasks, manual work that people are doing repetitively with online tools, online systems that are user-friendly. As Philip was saying, a lot of their employees are on site. They haven't touched technology before. So allowing easy user experience in these kind of scenarios, transforming these manual tasks, automating notifications, back and forth emails, so that employees, the people have more time for them to focus on more valuable work, focus on numbers, reports that coming out of these systems. So this eventually brings better reporting results because data is captured, data is stored in a secure place, and we can get reporting out of it. And this means better decision making, which is quite important, and creates a space for a digital business, which is again a must in today's world.
Yeah, and I think Philip and Carol there before us were talking about innovation. We were talking about resilience and transforming their businesses. So how can businesses use digitization to shape their future growth?
So I think there are a couple of things perhaps we can mention here. We need to accept that we live in a different world now. Things are not the same. However, no code, low code, digitalization are not new concepts. They were there. We have lived with them before. But what we have seen with in the last year, they are, or this is all accelerating. So we have a higher need, we have higher demands, and the market is evolving. The demands, the business demands are changing so fast. So anyone who is looking to use digitalization, innovation, I think both companies today we listened, ATA and Mercury, are great examples. And they are really great examples to hear from firsthand and how they drive innovation and how they treat innovation as a process, how they connect people using digitalization, how they quickly introduce solutions to respond to challenges they have faced, and they have faced before COVID, and they have faced perhaps faster since COVID. And we have seen other companies responding to challenges overnight, creating employee health and safety forms, creating a returns process, really quickly adapting to what was happening in the market. So they are really good proof that the recovery is going to be digital. The business recovery is going to be digital. And it's a good investment for any business who is trying to survive and thrive.
Yeah, and I think that is very on theme at the moment, because the digital transformation has really been accelerated as a result of the pandemic. I think we've moved about 5 years into the future. I think someone said the other day. Esma Abram has asked a little question. It's a really good question for you, Daria. Is there any advice that you give professionals who are seeking to adopt a low code or no code development approach?
I suppose the first advice I would give would be to train yourself and start with good basics of low code, no code, what kind of approach it is and what you can do with it, or what systems, platforms are available in the market. Most of them offer free trial and demos, so go and explore these options. And at Kianda also, we are partnering with some of the key training providers, and that they're able to provide starting points and foundations of no code, low code approach, the development approach. So I would recommend looking at the training options and thinking this could be a good place to start.
Yeah, and you know, I suppose I'm going to put that through because it's lovely to put maybe 1, 2, or 3 action points on it. So if an organization was considering digitization, what 3 tips would you give them, Daria?
I would, first thing I would say, people. So make sure you have the right people that are involved, that are going to become the champions of the digitalization projects you might have. But that's not just about people who know the requirements or people giving the great user experience. It's about involving them. It's about keeping them at the core and allowing them, empowering them to create solutions themselves. And second thing I would say, picking the right technology. So there is a lot available in the market. So there is a lot of options. So I think it's important to think, pause and think what we need, what is our strategy overall, and pick the right technology that we need, who can evolve with our business, who can allow us to make changes as we go. These are really important points. And the third one, I think is quite important, is the starting small. So we all like to, so we see a lot of people like to give it a big bite and in all one go. Sometimes that doesn't work. Of course, we need to have an overall digitalization strategy and, you know, overall vision of what we want to achieve. But starting small rather than big bang projects gives you as Carl was mentioning there, the agility, gives you the time to think and see what you are doing and how you can improve, and listen to people, the business owners who are going to be use the platforms.
No, that's super, Daria. And a big shout out to Aidan Bennett. So in the chat, and this is us using no code to be able to do this with Zoom. Aidan said there in the chat that he has, well, I lost it there when I went full screen. He works in a national utility, and we've implemented this asset management and digital twin solution, and it's been transformational for us. Aidan, great to see that. And as a result, I've thrown it up on the screen there. So dad.net.au. Thank you for sharing that. We wouldn't be able to do this in a live audience in a hotel room or do the polls as quick as we can. So digitization and the way we're using Zoom today is certainly helping. Daria, thank you very much. I'm going to ask you to come back again to the panel discussion then later on. But because we were talking about no code, I'm going to throw up another quick poll if we can. Let me throw this one up very quickly. No code, right? So a quick one. Have you ever used no code or low code platforms in your organization? So while that's been answered there, Daria, I will see you later on at the, which is very shortly, at the panel discussion. But thank you very much. And thank you to you and Osvaldo for hosting this morning.
Thank you.
We'll see you soon. So have you used no code or low code, no code and low code platforms in your organization? So that's a yes or no, or maybe yet to explore. So this will be an interesting one. I'm dying to see what this one will come out at. So I'm going to wait till it gets up to around the 70% mark. And we'll see how we get on there. So have you used no code or low code platforms in your organization? Right, we're just heading up for the 70% mark. So I'll end that poll and we'll throw it up on the screen. So yes is 41%. That's very encouraging to see that trend is improving. I would have expected no to be highest. So it's at 38% no, and yet to explore is 21%. So some exciting times ahead. It's a nice little segue, though, onto our next guest. I'm going to bring in Connor O'Kelly. So let me see if we can get you, Connor, and we'll get you to, let me see if we can find you there in the gallery, and we'll make you live on the screen. There you got you, Connor. Apologies about that. Let me bounce you in there. So Connor is the Chief Executive of the National Treasury Management Agency. It's a position that he's held since January 2015. And the NTMA is a state body which operates a commercial remit to provide asset and liability management services to the government. No pressure there at all, Connor. It's evolved from a single function agency managing the national debt to a manager of a complex portfolio of public assets and liabilities. Connor, you're very, very welcome this morning. And this is a serious brief that you have. And with the challenges of the last year, I'd imagine that you'd be a little bit downbeat about Ireland's economic future, but that's completely not the case. I spoke to you earlier on, and I don't think I've ever heard somebody as positive about our future focus.
Good morning. Yeah, good morning, everybody. Maybe just before I get to that, no, just to say how delighted I am to be on the panel with Carl and Philip and Daria. They're companies that I've huge admiration for personally, and the NTMA has some involvement. I mean, Mercury Engineering, one of the first Irish companies to go overseas in terms of project engineering, complex projects, great reputation all around the world. And ATA, Carl's company, I don't know, some people on the call might know that the Ireland Strategic Investment Fund, which is part of the NTMA, has invested in ATA recently to fund their acquisition of a German company. So you've got a precision engineering company, Irish company in Cavan, acquiring their German competitor, and that's a fantastic story. And of course, Daria herself, fantastic entrepreneur that we're in partnership with. They're doing some work for us on a number of our digitization processes, and you can't really call her and although a startup anymore, Kianda. It's more like a high growth company at this stage. So I'm delighted to be here. And I suppose at the core of confidence about the future is companies like that are doing so much, and all the conversation we've had this morning about that adaptability and resilience. And I think it's underrated and undervalued, probably not by international investors who buy Ireland's bonds. They understand. They've seen Ireland survive quite a few different extreme cycles and events, and come through and adapt with that flexibility and adaptability. And I think investors overseas recognize that probably a lot more than we maybe give ourselves credit for at home.
So, I mean, we spoke about resilience earlier on, Connor. Why do you think that the economy has been so resilient in Ireland?
Well, I suppose, look, if you go back to even the financial crisis, the same core fundamentals displayed themselves there then that we're seeing in evidence now. Ireland essentially has a twin engine economy. It has a domestic indigenous economy, and it has a multinational economy. And thankfully after the crisis, that multinational economy recovered faster, didn't get hit as hard, and essentially helped drag the rest of the domestic economy with it, and helped us to recover. And we're seeing a good bit of that happen again. If you look at what's happened in terms of multinational, the sectors that Ireland is exposed to, tech and pharma in particular, they've not only held up during the pandemic, they've thrived. So it's hard to say. People talk about recovery and what's the recovery going to look like, but one of the questions is recovery from what, and what are we recovering from? So income tax so far in 2021 is 14.5% higher than the same period in 2019 before the pandemic. disposable after-tax income in 2020 was 5% ahead of the previous year. That's during the pandemic. Spending on debit and credit cards in 2020 was only 5% lower than the previous year. We have savings of excess savings. They're talking about 11, 12 billion, something like that in the economy. So, the economy is in very good shape. Obviously, the government have put a huge amount of money. We can talk about that in a minute. We're borrowing all that money to fund that. But back in the crisis, Ireland had to slam its foot on the brake, cut spending, and this time, Ireland has put its foot on the accelerator and invested hugely in the economy, and that has had a huge impact. This economy is flying right now, even during the pandemic. Never mind as we start to come out of it. Now, a number of sectors, I'm talking very macro, and obviously if you're in retail or you're in travel or tourism, those industries are specifically hurt and will probably get continued specific support. But the rest of the economy is flying.
And you mentioned borrowing there, Conor. So we know our national debt has increased over the past year because we borrowed from so many international markets. I suppose two things: is it sustainable, and what does it mean for future generations?
Okay, well, that's the question I get asked the most, first of all, and I know there's some people from the office on the call. I see them there, and they'll know that in my office I've got a picture of Mario Draghi up on the wall. And so that must make me the only Irish public servant with a picture of an Italian politician up on the wall. But back in 2013, when Mario Draghi uttered his famous words, whatever it takes to save the euro, Ireland's annual interest bill was 7.5 billion, and it was forecast to rise to 10 billion. Today, Ireland's annual interest bill is 4 billion. And that's because of the policies of the ECB led by Mario Draghi that are continuing today. And just to put that 4 billion in context, that's twice what it was in the 1980s, but our government revenue is 10 times what it was in the 1980s. So, when people ask me, what about the burden on future generations? I'm saying, well, what burden? There is no burden on future generations in terms of the interest bill. On the contrary. And I think, obviously we will carry risk into the future in terms of refinancing that debt. But the ECB, we're not on our own here. We're in with everybody else, not just in Europe, right across the world. There's been extraordinary pandemic spending, and policies, institutional policies, will make sure, in my opinion, that the environment for all of that refinancing when it takes place will be benign. And so it's not something that worries me greatly.
So it's great to hear that. And if we're thinking about making predictions, and I've been asking everybody this with that future focused theme, where do you see the opportunities in the future?
Well, I suppose we've talked a lot about it this morning. It's so obvious. But you talked a little bit about traveling 5 years into the future. I'd slightly challenge that. So we're on a Zoom call here. We've got a couple of hundred people. So if there wasn't a pandemic, when would we have got to the point where we'd have used this technology? Because obviously the technology's been there. I mean, video conferencing has been there for 20 years. So how long would it have taken us all to be participating in this kind of a call? Probably 2030, maybe 2040, by the time the early adopters had dragged everybody else, and all the IT people that are specialists on this call dragged everybody else along. Because of course, for me, it's not technology that's changed. Technology hasn't accelerated or changed. What's changed and accelerated is our behavior, our mindset, our ability to change. That's always the thing that's the hardest thing for anybody who's in the technology business or the progression or the innovation business. And I think that's really the most interesting thing that's happened. And I suppose the question I would have is, is that mindset, are we more fertile now for further change? Have we realized, and I'm talking about everybody in the world, all doing the same social experiment at the same time, all changing in a way that we never have together, and maybe understanding that change isn't as hard, that the benefits are greatly outweigh any reluctance that we have. Are we going to be more? accepting of change in the future. There is a lot of people saying that we will be, and that therefore it's going to be exponential from here. If you look at, let's say, the stock markets and what investors are talking about, there's theme fever in the markets across the world. Two big themes. The one we've talked about today, digitization. We're at the beginning of one of the great secular trends of our time. There's no question about that. And the second one is sustainability. And that transition is going to be much faster than the markets and then people are currently thinking, much faster. And so my advice to any companies or any kids coming out of college is, get into the digitization or sustainability trends in business, because they are the inexorable trends of our time, and they're going to be much faster than people think. And I think that's what I think is going to be where the big fuel is going to be.
Yeah, there are two real areas to focus on. Great tips there. So digitization and sustainability. And I love that you have highlighted our resilience and adaptability. I think that's something that's really come to the fore. I have a question that's just popped in here from Sebastiano Toscano. How the digital tax that the EU is implementing will impact the EU economy and the mobility of people into EU countries.
Is that one for me? No.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, obviously, tax is a huge issue, and there's so much debate going on now in terms of the OECD and that what's called the BEPS program, and obviously you've got the US making their own, having their own discussions, and there's lots of alternatives. But look, for Ireland, it's a really important area. Corporation tax is a very significant part of our revenue and our income, and we'll have to see, how it plays out. Again, it's probably going to produce an outcome that is going to be slightly reduce our income from corporation tax. That's currently what the government are budgeting for anyway, and that's what we in the NTMA are forecasting and building in already to the numbers. So I don't think that's necessarily going to be a huge additional worry for us. But some of the things Sebastiano's talking about there, they're all quite unpredictable, and we'll have to see how countries ultimately coordinate in a new global tax regime. But it could be quite good for us as well, because I think you need certainty in that business to invest in multinational jurisdictions, and I think some certainty. Ireland's got plenty of advantages, and it isn't just about tax. For Ireland, I'll give you an example. No, we, as some of you will know, the Ireland Strategic Investment Fund, the NTMA, recently invested in Stripe, and the two Collison brothers, and they've made a huge commitment to Ireland in response to that investment. But in all the conversations we've had with Stripe about their commitment to Ireland, creating a second headquarters here in Ireland, hiring up to 1,000 high-quality jobs, tax was never mentioned on any of the calls. So they see huge advantages to locating here that have got nothing to do with tax. So I think as long as there isn't anything too dramatic in the tax front, I think Ireland will continue to be a big beneficiary.
Thank you, Conor. And it's great to hear those positive comments. I'm going to go straight into our panel discussion. So I'm going to bring in and bring back Daria, Carl, and let me see where we've got. I'm trying to find them on the gallery here. There you are, Carl. Sorry, apologies. We got you there. And Philip, there we got you, Philip, as well. Apologies. Just trying to find you there on the screen. So to everyone in the room there, if you want to raise your hand and ask a question, we'll unmute you and you can ask it directly, or you can pop it into the chat. And there's a few there. Somebody on their iPhone, so they haven't put in their name, but they said, "Hi, Daria, could you please speak about project management and the soaring demand of digitization abilities that is better served for our clients?" So the demand for digitization abilities and project management. Off you go again, get you on mute yourself. I got a t-shirt at Christmas that just says "you're on mute." It was my most used phrase there last year. But speak about project management and soaring demand of digitization abilities.
So as we have seen in the last while, digitalization demands are increasing. Organizations, they need solutions that they can use to adapt the changes and improve their business. So project management is not something that is far from this. So usually I get asked, who is the person actually uses the no-code or digital platforms in the organization, which can be anyone. It can be from project management manager, someone working within the project management team, or someone who is IT manager. They have a small IT team and has some perhaps development background and is using platforms, easy to use platforms to answer their digitalization needs. So with the solutions being more adaptive, more flexible, working together with project management, I think it's going to be the future.
That's lovely. Thank you. Regina Bracken. So this is to our entire panel. In terms of focusing on the future, do the panel believe that apprenticeships in IT are a useful addition to resource talent in Ireland, as much as they're assisting in Europe? So that's Regina Bracken in Fit Limited, CNC. To everyone in the panel there, who'd like to take that?
I'm happy to come in there on that one, Noel. Probably because we actually used the service that Regina was talking about there, the Fit service this year, and we recruited our first IT apprentice in the security space in 2020. And so far, it's been proven very successful. Like the concept of apprentices, as no big surprise, obviously, coming from an engineering construction background, the concept of apprentices is very successful. It's been widely used for many, many years in our industry. So it was not unique to us in one respect to the concept, but actually to bring it into effectively a back office function, and ultimately IT was new. We have a very successful graduate program. So I think we saw this just as another tool in our toolkit, is actually to recruit great talent and develop our future talent within the organization.
That's super. Thank you for that, Philip. Big one. This might be for you, Conor. A few countries have implemented the government cryptocurrencies, and the BCE and POC project to test it. Are we ready for that change, and how will it impact the economy? So that's open to anyone there, but that might be your end, Conor.
Yeah, look. I think obviously it's a huge topic. I think sometimes there's a bit of confusion between digital currencies and cryptocurrencies, but I think ultimately I think that we are going to see some version of an institutional central bank backed digital currency. I think that's ultimately where we're going. But what that'll mean for all of the cryptocurrencies that are trading in the market and that Elon Musk tweets about once a day, I wouldn't like to say. There's obviously huge amounts of speculation, but I think ultimately we will go to a digital currency crypto type backed by central banks around the world using blockchain. I think that because of the security benefits of that technology.
That's super. Thank you, Conor. David Brannigan. Hello, David from Fingal Chamber. So over 400 members of Fingal Chamber. And David is asking, as well as large corporate businesses, we work with a lot of SMEs. Can you recommend resources and supports which would help these businesses with their digital transformation journeys? Throw that out to the panel. So can you recommend resources and supports which would help businesses, especially SMEs, with their digital transformation journeys? We'd like to take that one.
One thing I will say, we're kind of too large now for some of the local grants, etc., the LEO offices and that, so we deal directly with Enterprise Ireland, but there is a lot of support out there. There is a lot of funding available. There is a lot of guidance available. So I would certainly talk to your local LEO and Enterprise Ireland and see what's out there, because every day we come across, there's different grants. They may not be marketed quite clearly and well, but if you talk to enough people and ring them up and say, what are we entitled, what's out there, what could we make use of? There is supports, both business support and both monetary support out there. And certainly digital is a hot topic. So, there seems to be a lot of focus on that and a lot of people willing to help.
Yeah, and I think it's a really good piece of advice, both the local enterprise offices and Enterprise Ireland. Daria, you're a poster child product of that, isn't it? That was
Absolutely.
the journey for Kianda, wasn't it? You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so in terms of support, when we started in the Link Center in Blanchardstown, and we did New Frontiers, Enterprise Ireland's New Frontiers program. And at the end of the program, we were introduced to local enterprise office Fingal, our local enterprise office. So we started there, we got really good support from them, grants and innovation voucher thing, or going to an event. Previously, we would be able to go to somewhere outside of Ireland, and we got really good grants and supports. Then Enterprise Ireland is the following path we followed, and becoming a high potential startup. And now we are moving from startup stage to scale up. So we are hiring. We are hiring currently. So we are hoping to triple our team at the end of this year. So we got really good support from the resources from Ireland here.
No, thank you, Daria. This is for Carl and Philip, I think. Fiona McCabe of Mercury Engineering. How do you encourage creativity and business ownership of digital processes while also ensuring alignment to standards and legislation? I think that's a journey both of you guys have traveled with a couple of hurdles along the way, isn't it?
I might take the ownership one, and then you can talk about the hard part of the question, Philip. When in our business, and I think I said it before, IT don't own these things, right? We facilitate it, whether it's a report, whether it's an application. So the first question I'll always ask is, who is the owner of this? So who owns this process? And if someone tells me it's 5 departments, then nobody owns it. So who actually owns this process, so that if there is a change, or if there is a request, or we need to make something, who do we go back to? So I think that's very keen, and that kind of puts the onus back on the business to say, all right, I own this now, so I kind of have to coordinate what the requirements are and what the inputs and the outputs are. So certainly, we're quite disciplined in our company at this stage about who owns what, because it's the same with a report. You generate a report, it goes out to the ether, nobody reads it, somebody complains it's wrong, and you're going like, well, who owns this? So absolutely, get in early, get an owner.
Yeah, and to follow on from that, absolutely right what Carl's saying. I always encourage people to think about the process and the people first. The technology answer is most likely there, and ultimately there's lots of answers usually in a technology standpoint, and it is a matter of picking the most appropriate one and the best one you can find. But the people and the process thing, I always think, needs to come first. And when that's considered, then you generally find that you will extract the most value from the solution, and also it helps then people come along on that journey. So therefore, if you have a conflict of interest around trying to develop the solution, which is part of your landscape, and it's secure, it integrates, or whatever it happens to be, people understand the reasons why, because they understand where their process and the bit that's important for them fits into the bigger picture for the rest of the organization. And once they've done that once or twice, then they're generally advocates for that when it happens in other parts of the organization.
It's super, Philip. Thank you, Carl. We promised a hard stop at around 9:20 because we didn't want to eat in too much the working day. So I want to thank all the audience for your participation and your questions, and especially our panel. But the takeaway I'm taking away today is really positive, especially from you, Conor, where you said the 3 things to focus on was digitization for business continuity, embracing sustainability, but more importantly, don't underestimate our capacity for resilience and potential. And I think that was a really positive point to get across today. So Conor, thank you very much. To Carl, Philip and Daria, thank you very much for attending today and giving us your insight. I really, really appreciate it. We've got Magda from Shiny Solutions. I'm giving you a big thumb up there and saying great advice, guys. Thank you very much indeed. A big shout out to Daria and Osvaldo of Kianda Technologies. Thank you very much for hosting this morning. And it'd be very remiss of me, for those of you who want to know a little bit more, you go on to kianda.com and click request demo. You can see some of this incredible technology for yourself. Kianda really are a trusted partner in digitization. And thank you both for hosting this morning. It has been fabulous, I think. A very quick one before you go. to the last poll of the morning, and it is a little bit of an evaluation one, because if we were to do this again, we want to know what worked and what didn't work. So a quick one, and I won't share the results up. I'll just leave that there for you to do. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you rate the content of today's event? So 1 being the lowest and 10 being excellent, because we can't change something unless we become aware of it. So if it worked, great, let us know. If it didn't, give us it's not a popularity contest. We really want to know what you thought. So thank you very much. So what I'm going to do from a future focus point of view is one final little takeaway from each of our panel members. What are you most looking forward to? What your future focus will be? So I'm going to go to you, Philip, first, then Carl, and then Connor, and I'll finish with you, Daria, if it's okay. Philip, your future focus, one takeaway. What would you say?
I think we hit on it in this call. I think the circumstances that we all were thrown this time last year or before, really, after we got over the first few weeks of the disruption, people learned to adapt very quickly, and some great practices were put in place. And I hope that when things do return to normal, that we don't lose that capability, not just to adapt, but also to think of the good things that we put in place during the pandemic timeframe.
Brilliant, Philip. Thanks a million. Carl, your future focus, what would it be?
Aside from a gin and tonic someplace in the south of France, or Spain more appropriately, I think a lot of things have started in the last year, so it's to see them come to fruition. So I know in ATA we literally started an e-commerce department, and we've also started a data analytics department. So they're very early stages, so really looking forward to see them grow and contribute to the business over time.
No, it's brilliant, Carl. Thank you very much. Connor, you're getting a lot of thumbs up for those 3 positive takeaways, but have you another one to add to them?
Well, I think the way we look at it in the NGMA, we talk about we've time traveled to 2040, and we like what we see, and we're not going back. And I think don't underestimate how mindsets have fundamentally changed in terms of our willingness maybe to change further and take on new innovations, and that could be exponential.
That's super, and it's a lovely positive note to finish on. But I'm going to finish with Daria. Your future focus, Daria, yourself and Osvaldo.
I think our future focus is the technology being more approachable for people, for a more inclusive future for everyone, whether they are technical or not, but a more inclusive future for everyone, so that they can unleash the innovation they have inside them.
Oh, super. Now, thank you, Daria. And on your behalf, I'm going to thank Karen Devine and Con O'Donoghue from White Light Consulting for, you haven't seen them live on the screen, but been frantically working for the last, God, it's been ages since we're putting it together, but a lot of work has gone into making this as concise and as packed as it actually is. So thank you, Karen, and thank you, Con. And to my colleagues in the Entrepreneurs Academy, I know Lorraine's in the audience here. Thank you for help and support. And it's been an absolute pleasure to host this morning's, I think, the very first inaugural Kianda sponsored event. But I think, Daria, you're going to do this again, because I think this has been a huge success.
Absolutely.
We have recorded this morning's event, and that will be sent out later today. It'll be available on the Kianda social media channels and their YouTube channel. So thank you very much to everyone today for participating. We very much appreciate all your time and effort. Stay safe, stay positive, and keep innovating. Slán.